What's going on, everybody? I'm Scott Oots, and I am here today with my friend James Hawk out of Florida. What's going on, man?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming. So I've known James for, gosh, it's probably been 3 years, maybe something like that now.
Yeah, maybe even a little
Um,
longer, dude.
Dang, just feels like you've been in my life forever.
Yeah.
Well, so James and I are in some masterminds together. Both similar type of businesses. He's got a great business partner, Hunter Hayden. Both those guys, just genuine people. And I try to always have people on here that are actively doing the business. And I know that is easier said than done in a lot of cases, but James and I were just talking offline about this, revamping our businesses and always doing new things and always spending more time. But of course, as you spend more time, it also takes time away from personal things as well. So it's that fine balance. James, you want to give them kind of a little breakdown on kind of your business and what you guys are currently doing?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so primarily we wholesale. I started in 2010, and my business partner that Scott mentioned, Hunter, we partnered up 2013. Now, we just expanded out into nationwide on the wholesale. We were already like all throughout Florida. We do fix and flips in most of Florida as well. And then we also started buying, some commercial properties. We have a couple of pretty good sized commercial properties under contract that we just got into this year as well. But primarily wholesale and fix and flip.
Great. And then are you guys keeping a rental portfolio at all yet?
We have a couple, but they're more like, so we're not interested in going out there and having a large portfolio of just your cookie cutter houses. That doesn't really interest us. So we're looking for more like unique types of properties. As an example, we have one in downtown St. Augustine. It's the oldest city in the country. It's actually where I grew up, and it's rated one of the most haunted houses. Uh, Also, so it's on the ghost tour. There's ghost tours there, and it's like one of the first stops on like multiple ghost tours. So really, really cool property. I mean, that's a highly desirable area. We got a great deal on it. And what we're doing is potentially we're either going to do a commercial lease downstairs, probably for a restaurant, or so we have another meeting Friday. If we end up doing both floors, then it'll just be under a commercial lease for a restaurant. But the idea is to do a commercial lease downstairs and then Airbnb upstairs because we have separate access. And I mean, dude, we bought it for 325. We'll probably have, depending on the lease situation, around 100 in capex, and then it's worth all. I mean, the commercial lease would probably be for $10,000-$11,000 a month alone, even if we just did downstairs for the restaurant.
Wow. And I imagine the Airbnb too, like,
We could probably cash out like $1 million.
yeah, you post that, man, live in a haunted house for the weekend. Like, dude, you're going to have people
Yeah.
like signing up.
I'm never
So,
selling that thing. So like stuff like that is really what we're more interested in.
yeah, I know, a lot of people have shifted towards that Airbnb model. And so what are your feelings around some of these people that have just got crushed as, COVID hit and Airbnb wasn't allowing short-term rentals and states were putting restrictions on that. In California, it was a $5,000 fine if you get removed from Airbnb if you lease your property to someone that did not have proof that they were in the medical field to be able to be a traveling nurse or doctor. What are your feelings on that? You think we're ever going to have something like that again, or?
You know, I want to say I want to say no, but at the same time, we're in a crazy just economic climate right now, and just political climate. Everything is just really kind of turned upside down. It's just interesting times, man. But my gut says no, but then at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm thinking 6 months from now there could be a brand new virus, right? Or like some other strain of COVID that now we're back in another pandemic and we're in lockdown. So I want to say no, but at the same time, I mean, I just feel like it's a 50-50. There's just really is that uncertainty out there now. And that's the risk that you take, right? Like every investment that you make comes with risk. So that's one of the risks when you're doing the Airbnb model.
And another risk with Airbnb too. So if I look at like San Diego, which isn't that far from me, you've got all the hotels pushing the cities to put limits on these short-term rental properties because obviously it's taken a big cut of their profits. So, it's amazing how overnight that can shift because we're looking at just San Diego alone. It's like, hey, no more. And then you look at where I'm at in Huntington Beach, where you cannot have a rental that's advertised for less than 30 days in that downtown area. So these hotels are lobbying heavily against trying to kill this Airbnb model because it's killing their business. People would rather be in a house than in a hotel room that's 200 square feet, right? So what are your feelings regarding, going into more Airbnbs, go more Airbnb heavy with states starting to put more restrictions on those things?
I don't want to. That's not the goal at all. I don't want to go heavy into the Airbnb model. I think you brought up more valid points there, and even like in that area that I was just referencing a minute ago, you can only have so many, within a certain distance and everything like that. So there is more and more regulations coming for them. So we're more so looking at the properties where worst case. So like as an example, this one, we could always lease this out, for the commercial lease, just both floors, right? So we could do that model, or we could even turn it into a single family and rent it that way and still kill it. So we're looking for those properties where we have options, right? Where we're not going to go out and just buy one that's like, all right, we can really, this only works well as an Airbnb. So that's not what we're going after. And for a lot of the reasons that we just discussed.
Yeah, and I guess one thing we could look at if we really want to get like deep, right? We can say kind of hotels are to Airbnbs like taxi cabs were to Ubers because, that happened in the past. And I know taxi cabs were like blocking Uber entrances. They were like lobbying to say, hey, we're the only ones that can pick up from the airports. And even a lot of the airports around here, the smaller airports pulled Uber and Lyft from them. You could only get a taxi. So they thought they could push the consumers into being in taxis versus Lyft and Ubers when nobody wants to be in the back of those smelly taxi cabs, right? So what did people do? They started getting on the rental car shuttles, went to where the rental cars are because it's a free ride out, and then they went and got an Uber from right there. And they're finding ways around it. So as hotels continue to do these things and try to keep people from doing these short-term rentals, and a lot of neighborhoods too are against it. They don't want the Airbnbs. I was actually in Nashville for a buddy's bachelor party earlier this year. We rented an Airbnb townhome, cool spot, but there was a few Airbnbs in there. And of course, we go for the weekend. We want to hang out. We want to be loud. We want to party. Well, that's us for a weekend. Well, we check out, and then somebody else obviously checks in. Well, they're there for their time. They want to party. I'm sure to neighbors that can get a little old, right? So I could see that side of it, but yeah, that model's been something where I would like to have a few just because I want to have them in destinations where I want to travel to. So I'm not just paying for a vacation home that I go to once a year. I can have a choice when I want to go to it and then rent it out the rest of the time. So I think that'd be a cool model to do as a benefit for myself and my wife or friends to be able to go to.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, full transparency, like I'm not, unless I'm going with a group of people and it's like, all right, let's get something like super sick somewhere or whatever. Like I'm not really an Airbnb person, right? I would prefer just to like get a super sick hotel room somewhere, right? Have all the amenities. I don't have to deal with like, I get the maid service, all that stuff. That's just my preference, right? But unless it's a big group of us and we're going to do something similar to like what you said, I would typically just stay at a hotel. So that's just preference. But I mean, to your point, yeah, the neighbors essentially will hate you, right? And especially when it's in an area that is heavy for, partying and everything like that. There's pros and cons, right? But it's just not for me as far as like building out a portfolio based on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the one you're talking about has got a benefit to it because it is something a bit different. And it's something that I think people are going to want to stay in because of things like that. So if you look at things like that, I think you're going to have a lot of people lining up for it. But at least you'll have the commercial income downstairs to be able to do that. So let's talk a little bit about your business. So a lot of people that are kind of watching these things are kind of looking for how to get their business to that next level. And we just talked about kind of revamping your business offline, and you guys are going nationwide. You guys have made kind of a big jump into what a lot of people are starting to kind of do. But that's obviously a transition. It's not as easy as, I envy the new people sometimes, because when they want to make a change, they don't have staff to retrain. They don't have processes to redo. It's like, okay, I can make this change this afternoon because I decided it 10 minutes ago. But I try to explain to people that as you grow your business, well, a new person can shift their business in 10 minutes. It'd be a disaster if I tried to shift my business in 10 minutes, because I've got employees, I've got processes, I've got all these things I've got to change. What's this process been like going to a nationwide model versus your current model?
I tell you, dude, it's been painful. I mean, I'll be very transparent about it. It is, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces to do it, to set it up the right way. Now, granted, like if we wanted to just say, all right, we're going to, we'll just create a site for nationwide. We'll just run some ads. We'll just do this. We'll do that. And we'll just kind of like whatever, piece it together. That's not really how we want to operate, right? So we went out and, we had other needs anyway. Like we brought in a new COO. We brought in a quality assurance manager, right? We kind of changed the sales model around. So we have the junior sales level, which is more like, your lead coordinators and setting up for the senior sales. So we adapted that model, and then we redid essentially every process and system and everything. We literally changed everything, right? We did Salesforce. We changed all our calling systems, our text. I mean, you name it, we probably changed it. So when I say it's been painful, it's been very, satisfying, right? To see it like all coming together, and it's really exciting, but it has been a ton of work. Make no mistake about it, the way that we did it, because we wanted to do it the right way. Before we had a training website, right, where we had built out an entire website, and we've had this for years now, to where every single position had their own login. It has detailed flow charts, training videos, and everything for, all the process mapping for the entire company. Well, going through this process, you're changing the entire model, you're changing your systems. So we had to redo everything in there, right? And the quality assurance manager we hired, she's an absolute rock star, right? And she heads up a lot of, stuff that we're doing in Salesforce, making sure all the process mapping is good, the training site's good. She monitors calls all day, monitors the database, making sure everything is tight. So that's been a big game changer. But a big one was really bringing on the COO, and just changing the model around. It's been a lot of work, but it has been great as well. So I don't want to make it seem like it's horrible, but to your point, it was a much more difficult shift than just saying, all right, I'm just going to switch this really quick in 20 minutes, right?
It takes a lot, even just revising process documents and stuff. It's absolutely crazy.
Dude, everything. We rebranded the entire company too. That's the other thing. So all new websites, all new branding materials. I mean, dude, we literally broke everything down and just rebuilt it from the ground up.
That's kind of like some of the stuff that we're doing right now. We're starting to prep ourselves to be able to go into other states and do things like that. Well, we've got all these new marketing things we're starting to test. I feel like we are literally we're in a testing phase without killing the original business. We're trying to, I think some of the cool stuff we're doing, it's absolutely crazy though, because as you get bigger, it's also more expensive to test. We just put so much money. I think we put like 80 grand into testing, which we're basically taking all of our profit, and then some from like June to be like, hey, all right, we're trying this stuff. It's the end of the quarter. Who cares? We're profitable for the quarter. Let's just throw this out there and let's try some of these new things, because the market's hot and it's a perfect time to test some of this. But it's also a very expensive mistake if it doesn't work out. So
It is,
that's
man.
not fun.
I mean, exactly. And it's what a big driver for us is. And, we're always trying to keep that our back against the wall mentality. Is there's just so much money to make out there right now. So like, how fast can we get it done? And that's why I really had to make a decision, like shift, really like dig deep, and get into the weeds to make sure that we could make this happen as fast as possible. So Hunter and I both have been, really, really deep in it. And we're getting to a really good place now to where, we don't really have to be as involved, like nearly as much as we were, because everything's basically in place now. But, we're just fizzling it out more. So making a slower transition just to make sure that it's right. You know what I mean? Because we did change so much stuff. So we're keeping a really, really close eye on everything and just making sure that, any process or system that's not working, like we're on top of it, and just trying to optimize everything as fast as possible.
Yeah. And as you say, as fast as possible, but unfortunately, as fast as possible is not as fast as us as entrepreneurs want it. Yeah, it's like, I miss being able to change things in like 10 minutes, man. You know what? Today, we're just going to turn off this marketing and we're just going to start this one. No big deal. No big deal. And it's like now, all right, I got to do all these adjustments. It's like, oh my gosh, like I want to be able to pivot quickly, but when you start looking like right outside this wall, right? I got like 10, 11 people out here working right now that are on staff with me. If I make a bad decision as a business, I have to live with that decision and saying, hey guys, can't pay you. That kind of stuff sucks. So you've got more stress and accountability on you as a business owner when you start having a larger team, because a larger team, whether you pay them on commission, whether you pay them on salary, it's overhead regardless. And a lot of people say commission isn't overhead. It's still overhead because you're still paying the people. I mean, yes, they're only getting paid for what they work for, but you're still paying them. It's still overhead. There is a cost to that.
You're still paying them regardless.
Yep. So that stuff gets a little more expensive, and your mistakes can become more detrimental to not just your life, but them putting food on their table, them paying their mortgage, and all these kind of things that they need to do. So yeah, it's a tough spot to be in to transition, especially that large of a transition you're working on.
Yeah. It's been a lot of work, but again, I'm super excited about it. The entire team, is super bought in on everything. They're all super. So there hasn't been any resistance there. I mean, I think that it was just the natural progression of like, all right, so we're here, but I mean, do we want to play all out and like get to here? Because if we want to do that, then like we got to change all this stuff. And that's the only way that I seen it working well. So that's why Hunter and I made the decision, like, all right, we're going to go for it and go all out. I mean, if you're going to do it, just let's get in there and do it. Right. So that's the decision we made. And, to your point, man, it's true though. You have everyone that's banking on you. There's a big difference between when you're in the early stages, right, of business, and it's just maybe you and a person or two, whatever. You can make a big mistake like that, and everything bombs, and maybe the account hits zero, and you're like, all right, well, I'll figure it out. I'll go get a deal. I'll build it back up a little bit. It's like, it's not as big of a deal. But when you have, 10, 15, 20 people working for you, that have families that have, they're counting on you, right? They're bought in. That's why they're there. They're expecting you to make the right decisions for them as well.
Yeah, completely agree. It's scary, but it's also exciting at the same time, because I think us entrepreneurs, our mindset is, hey, we want to change lives of people around us as well, and we want people to work for companies like they've never worked for. And I think a lot of us have a very similar corporate environment that's not really a corporate environment, right? It's a little more relaxed. It's more fun. It's the new age of doing things, not you come in, sit in a cubicle all day long, you keep your head down. It's just not that way anymore. So it's cool to see us being able to change the way people perceive working for others. So All right, so I want to ask you a question here, and I did this for Brent Daniels way back. So I'm going to throw a disclaimer out here that I'm asking James a question, and James is not a lawyer. James is not giving you legal advice, and he is not responsible for anything you do with his advice here.
I echoed that just to confirm it.
If you could do me a favor and just hold your hand up like this.
I saw it.
Hold your hand like this, and Cody's going to put a crystal ball in your hand, and you are going to tell people.
Put in there. If it's going to be a ball I get, I need both hands, you know?
Okay, do this then. He'll block your face. So, tell people what you think the real estate market, in your personal opinion, knowing that you are not an attorney and you are not someone that watches this stuff all day long. You are a business owner and providing your personal opinion on where you think the real estate market is going to go within the next 12 or 24 months.
Okay, that's a great question. And I've been having this conversation a lot, obviously, and I'm sure you have as well outside of the show. This is so... I'm really 50-50 on this, but I'm going to lean more towards one direction. So let me just start from what the majority of everyone is probably thinking that really like is in the business, that's doing it. Are going to say, all right, so the foreclosures are going to hit the market, and then we're going to hit that correction and everything else, right? And that, my initial thought is the same thing, right? Naturally. But here's the caveat to that. You have all the funds, all the iBuyers that are paying retail, full retail, or over retail in certain cases for these properties now. Even when all those foreclosures hit the market, like what really changes there if they're still paying those prices? That means the market still is stabilized, right? Even with an influx of properties that hit the market. I mean, maybe it goes down a little bit, right? Because there is an influx of inventory versus now there's almost zero inventory even through the entire country. But I really don't think that we're going to see a huge correction like some people think, at least for over the next 12 to 24 months. I don't think it'll be there. That's my personal opinion. I don't have that crystal ball, right? But look, they're paying crazy prices. Now, where I could see it being affected is in certain markets that's not the case. As far as all your like big metros and like your really hot sub markets around those metros, I don't think which is really the driver, right, throughout the country for the market anyway. I don't see those being affected just due to that situation. Now, I could see them being affected, and I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing, Little Rock, Arkansas, or something. I mean, you know what I mean? One of these like smaller markets that aren't really like your big metros. So that's my perspective on the market and where it's going.
So I think we're pretty aligned with kind of my views and yours on it. I mean, my thing is, and I'll probably get a lot of backlash for saying this, but we're in a day and age where people want a lot of stuff for free. And if you look at a lot of people that are on unemployment right now, I mean, for me, I've got 4 jobs open right now that I'm trying to hire for, and we have record low applicants. And most people, if they even apply, they're not showing up to the interviews. It's absolutely crazy. You've got restaurants closing early because they can't find people. You've got businesses that are like, hey, we need employees. Well, a lot of people on the other hand are saying, well, pay your employees more. It's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. You look at it and say, a lot of people want something for free. Now, if people have the ability to say, hey, I understand you got a mortgage on your house, but you know what? You don't even need to pay that for, a year and a half. You don't even need to pay your mortgage. And guess what? Your bank's just going to have to add that on to the end of the loan. They can't charge you any late fees, and there's no downside to your credit. There's no downside to anything. We don't even verify that you did lose your job. You could just choose not to pay. And you know what? We're not even going to give you a slap on the wrist. We're just going to put it on the end of the loan. I think that a lot of people that are on forbearance, my personal opinion is that a lot of people that are on forbearance right now can afford to make those payments, but they don't have to. And they look at it as an ability to either A, boost their savings up, or B, save the money for the vacation they want to go on or spend it on something they want. And when you look at that,
look at the PPP. Look at, and
right?
I'm not trying to cut you off, but there's that dude here in Miami that who went out, he bought like $1 million Richard Mille watch. He bought a Lamborghini. He bought, he
Yeah.
dropped all this freaking money, man. So, I mean, to your point, but go ahead, continue. I didn't want to cut you
Yeah, I
off.
mean, that's the perfect point. I mean, you look at all that money that's available, even SBA loans as well, like 2% interest. Like, I was like, damn, give me those loans because I'm going to use that to buy and flip houses if I want, because that's way cheaper than other funds. So I got those loans and I've got them sitting in my account so I could use them for that stuff. Well, you look at like forbearance and say, all right, when it comes down to the point where, let's say, 80% of the people that are in forbearance can pay and they don't want to. Now, that's a statistic I'm just randomly pulling out of a hat. But let's say they say, okay, starting in 2 months, this is going to start affecting your credit if you don't pay it. I think we're going to see a lot of people start to pay immediately. And they're not having to pay what they missed. It's going on the end of the loan. They have no downside. So I think they're going to start to pay. And I think there's going to be a lot less people that are going to a foreclosure situation than most people think, because they're not taking into account the point that jobs are available. Lots of jobs are available. And people just don't have to pay. It's like if they told people, you know what, if you guys want to pay taxes this year, go ahead. That'd be fantastic. But if you don't want to, it's not a big deal. We don't care. You won't be penalized. Would you pay your damn taxes? Because I sure as hell wouldn't. So that's the thing. It's like I truly feel like there's a lot of that out there. And I don't feel like it's going to be as bad as people think. I think that the market can't continue to shoot up 100,000 in 6 months. I don't think it could do that. But I mean, interest rates, they announced they're not going to go up. Lumber prices are finally coming down, which there was no reason for that to go up. People are not being penalized for not paying their payments. There are plenty of jobs available. States are opening back up again. I mean, why would we believe there is going to be a huge crash after this? And again, I got to throw it out there again that these are our personal opinions. We are not qualified to actually tell you guys what's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, my literally reading on this stuff is like Facebook and the news and Instagram. Come on, those aren't valid sources anyway. It's just based on my personal opinion. So,
but I'll tell you, I think so I like if you just combine what you just said with what I was saying, I mean, then that would almost solidify, like, in my opinion, right, that we're probably not going to see, any kind of a huge correction anytime soon. So, because I agree with what you said. I mean, I think that's very true. I think there's a lot of people out there that could do it. And even like with the rent moratorium, right? How many people do you think actually could have paid rent, but just took advantage of not having to pay rent? Right.
Yep.
So I think that's another factor there as well. And I mean, it is crazy. I know a lot of people out there are having hiring issues right now.
Yeah. And I think the rental market, that one right there, I think that one's going to cause some issues. I truly do, because that's not getting put on the end of your rental, right? I mean, you still owe this money to your landlord. And these landlords have grown so impatient that if I had a bunch of rentals and the renters weren't paying and I could see that they actually had a job still, dude, I will file an eviction at the end. 100% I will, because I want that person out of my house. So, and I will go after them as much as I can to get all that money, right? Because that's the point in it. And I think that you are going to have some stuff happen when it comes to evictions. And I don't know about you guys, but our phones have been ringing off the hook from landlords that are pissed. And we have, I think Mike just said this morning, 70 some properties in escrow to purchase right now. And out of those 70 some properties, over 50 have tenants in them right now. And we've been successful at trying to get tenants out of properties and working with them. But there are some tenants that just tell us, I'm not going anywhere. Like, why would I? So when we start getting that attitude where you don't have to, your negotiation power goes away. So I think there's downsides to some things, but I think you mentioned metro areas and things like that as well. Remote working has also brought on some interesting moves. You look at San Francisco, for instance. A friend of mine had a small 900 square foot, 2-bedroom place in San Francisco, and they were paying like $5,800 a month or something for that place. Yep, but now these people are remote working. So what's happening is a lot of these people are moving out of the city, taking their $100,000 salary that barely went anywhere in the city, and they're moving to a place where the rent's $2,500 and they still have their salary. And I think a lot of companies are starting to pull back in remote workers. They're saying, all right, guys, it's time. And a lot of people were saying, oh, offices are going away. This is going to be the new age where we're remote working. I don't think that's the case. I think people are going to have to start going back into the offices. And I think that's going to cause a change as well, because people are going to be terminating leases because now they got to move back closer to their office to go back in. And then the landlords are going to want to get rid of those houses. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things coming. I just don't think a crash is one of them.
Yeah, dude, we've been hitting the landlords like at the beginning of COVID, hard. Like as soon as it started happening, because again, that's the big opportunity to what you were saying before. That's the big opportunity for us as far as like buyers, right? Because there's a lot of these people that they're going to have to deal with a ton of, especially if they have, let's just say it's like a smaller portfolio. Like a lot of these people that have, 5, 15 properties, whatever. And they're just going to say, you know what, like they're not paying, like we got to deal with all these evictions. They're just going to say, F this, let me just get my money out and I'll go invest it in something else. And we're seeing a lot of that as well. And, that's a big, just, for everyone on the marketing side, there's a big opportunity with the landlords right now for deals.
Yeah. Yep, and that's definitely going to continue because this moratorium keeps getting pushed out further and further and further. And eventually they got to bite the bullet, California, our governor here basically said that he set aside money for landlords finally. And the landlord he basically said, landlords, I will pay you, I believe it's 80% of your missed rent if you agree not to go after the tenants for anything additional once the eviction moratorium ends. People aren't collecting that money. They're like, screw it. No, I want it all. And I want these people out.
I want it all, man. I want it all.
Yep. 100% agree.
I was still, especially the ones that have mortgages, right? That weren't being, dicks about it. And they were paying, right? They were still paying all throughout COVID. So that means they're just going in the hole every month, taxes, insurance, so they just went in the hole. And I think it's only fair that they get it all.
I agree.
That was the agreement that was made between both parties. Like, I let you live in the house. You pay me for it. So.
Yep. And that's, you look at tenants that are out there with brand new TV boxes on the curb and brand new cars in the driveway because they can do it right now.
Yeah, because you don't have to pay rent.
Yep. And that part sucks. But so if we got really deep here and said, if you were giving some advice to somebody that, say they're doing a couple deals a month and their goal right now is to start growing, right? They want to get to 5 deals a month, 10 deals a month, and so on. You've made a lot of mistakes in the past, as I have. What are some advice you can give people on what they should do and most importantly, what they shouldn't do?
Yeah, I would say, and I've said this for a long time. If you were, let's just say, doing like a deal or so, you know what I mean, a month, then you got to be consistent, right, with your marketing and always refining your sales skills, right? So especially if you're like that one person, become great at, locking up deals and selling deals, and stay consistent with your marketing. So the way marketing really works is you got to keep it's repetition, right? So you got to stay in front of people, especially in the kind of market that we're in right now. It's highly competitive out there. So you got to be consistent with your marketing and then really dig deep into your leads. Try to find value props that nobody else is offering, right? So try to find solutions to all different types of situations that can arise, because believe it or not, there's a lot of people out there that pass on stuff because it's just a little bit more difficult. It's just not straight up, all right, yeah, I'll do the deal. And like, there's no hair on it at all or anything. A lot of people market and advertise that they will go above and beyond, right? But they typically won't. So if if you can instill that as you're growing, right, and like as you're building out your team and train them on how to overcome like a lot of these things that other people don't want to deal with, or they're just not willing to learn how to do it or want to do it, then that'll help you tremendously. And you'll be able to spend less and convert more than everyone else that's not willing to dig into those types of deals.
Great. I like that. So I think that consistency, and I will always say, is the most important thing in the business. And if you are consistent in everything you do, you're consistent in your marketing, the way you talk to sellers, the way you follow up, the way you do a deal, the way you carry yourself, everything you do, if you're consistent across the board, you'll end up seeing success in the business. But if you decide to throw 100 mailers out this week, just see what you get, and then you complain that you don't get anything, so you don't send any more mailers out, it doesn't work, right?
No.
So people that are doing potentially like a direct mail, we talked about consistency on these things. I know for me, we try to mail each list about 6 to 8 times at a minimum. And we mail that list every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on, our processes. Are you guys kind of the same way as far as that, or do you guys have a different process?
We're similar. We're hitting it like 5 now though. So and the reason why is because on 6, and we watched this really close over a year. Like on the 6th, it just diminished. The return just starts diminishing so much in the response that we stopped hitting 6. So now we're doing 5. But also on what we were just saying, the follow-up side, if you are not following up like crazy, like that is an absolute game changer for you. But following up like in a very intentional way. And it's very important to take good detailed notes of whatever the interaction was that you had with the seller and good takeaways from there. And then follow up with value, right? So, I mean, that could even be, taking a second and reading and saying, okay, so this person, I know they have a tenant issue, right? Maybe you find a good article about how, their situation, they would have to deal with it. Maybe it's how to reinvest their money into something else or whatever, and then they can get that burden off, something, right? So following up in a more strategic way. And I think a lot of people fall short of follow up in that regard, to where they just, all right, we'll just pound the phone and keep hitting, but all you're doing is asking for something, right, from them. You're not delivering any value. So you wonder why people ghost you. They never answer the phone. They never respond to your text, because if they're not interested in selling right now, they're not, right? So that's all you're offering to them. You're not delivering any other value to them. But on the mail, yeah, the 6, it just wasn't working as well for us. So we cut it down to 5. We just seemed it diminished so much.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, for us, we do see value in kind of the 7th and 8th time a little bit, but you're right, it does taper off a little bit at that point. But we also find that, someone gets off that list, they're on another list. So, I mean, there could easily be people we've mailed for 2 years.
Yeah, right. Like and that really blows my mind sometimes. Like if I refresh that same list, right? And then it's like, I never mailed it before. Right. But then I get to that 6th time, nothing. But that a lot of those people are on multiple of these lists because we're looking at it. So it is interesting how that works. But when we, like the last time over the last year, when we really watched it closely, I mean, it just, for whatever reason, that 6th time seemed to drop down. So we cut it down to 5.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining, and I really appreciate you taking the time to help people out. We went down kind of a rabbit hole on a conversation, but I think it's good for people to hear kind of the other side. Even if people are watching this 2 years from now, kind of seeing what impact a change like COVID or a market change has had, what Airbnb changes are potentially going to have. I think it's really cool for people to look back at that and say, dang, they did have a lot of challenges, and here's where we are now. Almost a time capsule, if you will. Maybe we should go back and watch this a couple of years from now and be like, dang, those were the easy times, or something like that. But I appreciate you joining, man, and I think that people are going to get a lot of value out of this. So if people want to follow you, where do they find you?
They can find me so at James the Hawk on TikTok, on Instagram, and then also on YouTube as well. But I greatly appreciate you have me on here, brother. You know I love you. Hopefully I get to see you soon. I know it's been a minute.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's been a while, and unfortunately, I'm not going to make it next week. But like I said, there's always a location you can go to. Everyone laughs at it, but you can go to Idaho and come hang out. Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you so much, everyone. I am Scott Oots. This is James Hawk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys smash that like button. Follow me so you know every time we have new content coming out. Talk to you guys later.
Subscribe, baby. Subscribe.